So, this is going to be a quick talk about SI23 having 6 out of its 26 playoff games in front of a crowd, and the reason for that, because while many people have rightfully complained that they only got 6 matches for the biggest event of Siege's calendar year, that's not really the problem here. See, Jönköping or any other major in R6, or if you look beyond R6 and you look to something like CSGO with IEM Katowice, these tournaments often don't have that many playoff games for the crowd to watch. IEM Katowice has something like 8. Jönköping Major had 7 matches and 8 teams represented. So it's not that we had 6 playoff games at the 6 Invitational 2023. The issue is that we saw 6 out of 26 playoff games in front of a crowd. And that's a big deal for a number of reasons. For the crowd, they know they're missing part of the action. They know that they are missing some of these playoff games that would have been really hyped to have in front of a crowd. They don't get to see as many of their favorite players. They don't get to see as many of their favorite teams. Some of those players feed off that energy. Some of those players will crumble under the pressure. And the crowd gets to see none of that because that part of the playoffs wasn't shown. For the players, this is also a bad thing to have part of playoffs missed. A lot of esports careers are not that long, and for the average pro, their career will not be long. They might be in the industry for a year, 2, maybe 3, if they're really good, maybe 4 or 5. Not everyone is a freak of nature like Nesk, Canadian, Pengu, or Palu. Not everyone can just keep trucking along and play at a top level. Look at MVK. He was at the top of the game, and where's he now? How did One Shot do in Challenger League? So these careers aren't long. For the average player, you don't get that many opportunities at a 6 Invitational. If you make playoffs, the assumption is that you're going to be able to play in front of a crowd, and that's likely going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. At SI23, making playoffs didn't guarantee you a spot in front of a crowd. You had to be top 6 out of 20 teams. That's not a good ratio. And so that's more the reason people were angry with SI23's format than the fact that there were only 6 playoff games. The amount of playoff games was not the issue. It was how much of playoffs was being seen compared to how much was in front of a crowd. And with that said, let's talk about why this happened. Because this didn't happen. This hasn't been a complaint. You don't see this kind of complaint with any other tournament in the Siege calendar. You don't see this kind of complaint with any other esport. The reason this happened is because the group stage did not serve a purpose. We came into the tournament with 20 teams. We started playoffs with 15? We had a near useless group stage that did not get rid of the weaker teams, and this resulted in a bloated playoffs. The reason that's a problem is that the group stage is meant to cull the weaker teams. If you can't hold your shit in a round-robin format of a 5-team group, you probably don't deserve to be in playoffs. That's just how it is. You've played 4 games. If you have a losing record and you can't make top 2, you should probably be eliminated. That's what the group stage is meant to do. It's meant to cull a lot of the weaker teams all at once so that we have a nice, concise playoff bracket. SI23's group stage did not do this. It only eliminated 1 team per group, and as a result, there's a super bloated playoff bracket. You'll see in the blog post, which has a snapshot of the Liquipedia tournament bracket, you can see just how huge fucking the playoffs are. It looks like an FGC pool more than it does a tournament bracket for a playoffs of a team-based competitive shooter. It's actually absurd. And so I know for a fact that having the 3rd and 4th seeded teams from groups make it into playoffs is the problem, because when I compared SI23 and its playoff bracket to SI20 and its playoff bracket, there was a noticeable difference in how it looked. And of course, there's some minor differences of how points worked and how many teams were present in the groups and blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, the fundamental differences that really differentiated how these playoff brackets looked was SI23 let the 3rd and 4th place teams in groups go into playoffs. SI20 did not. SI20 only had the top 2 teams of each group go into playoffs. Now, what has SI20 done that notably SI23 did not? Well, in 2020, we got to see all of the playoff matches in front of a crowd. We got to see Fnatic beat G2. We didn't get to see that in SI23, if Fnatic was ever actually going to compete at SI23. Unlikely, but So, what we see here is that by trying to create a room where nobody gets eliminated from the group stage, we created unnecessary tournament bloat, and that resulted in a poor playoff bracket and a poor viewer experience for everyone involved, and a poor playing experience for everyone involved, because when you try to make a tournament have as many lives as possible for everyone, it just doesn't work. It's a competition. It's got to be cutthroat to a certain degree, which is why this last point is kind of sucky to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. Astralis shouldn't have been able to make the run they made. Look, all respect of a run, it was an amazing feeling, an amazing moment to watch them in person, hear that crowd roar when they beat Koi, when they were playing against G2. Those were amazing moments. That said, Astralis shouldn't have been in playoffs. They went 1-3 in the group stage. They were the 4th seed in their group. They started in loser's bracket. If we had a decently competent tournament format, they wouldn't have even made it out of groups. So, as harsh as it is to say, Astralis shouldn't have even been given the opportunity to make their loser's bracket run. And I'm okay with that.